Hi everyone, welcome back if this is not the first time you are seeing my face. My name's Nicole and today I am going to share with you 5 books which were so good that I read them in one sitting. I either read these books in one sitting or I stayed up all night reading them. There are definitely books which I read in one sitting which I didn't enjoy, but today I am sharing with you 5 books which I did enjoy and would recommend to you. The first book is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. In this book we follow a young girl named Liz Lighty. While attending school, all Liz can think of is the day where she can finally leave school and the town that she grew up in and attend the college of her dreams. Unfortunately, a hiccup occurs when Liz finds out that she is unable to receive the funding that she would need in order to attend the elite college. However, she is reminded that her school offer a scholarship program to the prom king and queen. This sounds pretty simple, but Liz is very shy. She has a lot of anxiety and she prefers to blend into the crowd rather than stand out from it. To make matters worse for Liz, she meets the new girl Mac, who is also running for prom queen, and she might just be falling for the competition. I basically flew through this book. It's such a wonderful story about a young girl learning about herself and the people around her and figuring out just how far she's willing to push herself to make all of her dreams come true. I absolutely loved this book. It was so easy to read. There were serious moments sewn in with the lightheartedness and it all just blends together perfectly. The next book on this list is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. In this book we follow a young girl named Eliza. Eliza is very shy and socially awkward and she doesn't really have any friends. Online, however, she is known as the anonymous creator of a very popular webcomic called Monstrous C. A new guy starts at her school called Wallace, who happens to be Monstrous C's biggest fan fiction writer, and he thinks Eliza is just another fan. However, the proverbial shit hits the fan and Eliza's online persona is revealed, and everything she's built in her online and offline world comes crashing down around her. I loved this book when I read it, and honestly it is high time for a reread. I remember thinking when I first read this book that I was going to put it down because I needed to go to sleep. It was a work day and needed to be in the office. Remember those days? And I figured I would finish it in the kitchen on my lunch break. I couldn't help myself, and honestly that was a good decision because a scene took place not too long after I made that decision and I cried my eyes out. That would have been slightly awkward at work. It's so easy to read. I flew through it and the parts which make you cry are perfectly balanced with the ones which make you laugh. The next book I have is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerry Maniscalco. In this book we follow a young woman named Audrey Rose Wadsworth. Audrey Rose is the daughter of a lord. She is very privileged and her family is very wealthy. However, Audrey Rose isn't quite interested in the life of social teas and dress fittings. Instead, she often finds herself sneaking away to her uncle's laboratory to study forensic medicine. Her uncle is a mortician and her work ultimately leads her into an investigation of what can only be described as a serial murderer. This book, okay, yes, I read this as part of like a mini 24 hours Goodreads catch-up readathon last year, but I say it counts because I 100% would have read this in one sitting anyway. I loved this book. I loved all of it. I loved the characters, I loved the investigations. Looking back at my review, it seems like I figured out quite early on like who was behind everything, which is normally a pet peeve of mine. There are books where I've hated that in like Girl on the Train or The Woman in the Window, because I personally like to figure it out with the characters. However, I think what made this book different is that there is so much more going on than just the primary investigation, and that just makes it so much more compelling. And I have to mention it, I loved her back and forth with Thomas Cresswell. That was so good. The next book I have on this list is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. In this book we follow a man named Jason Desson. Are you happy with your life? Are the last words Jason hears before he is knocked unconscious. He awakes to find himself surrounded by people in hazmat suits, and a man he's never met before says, "Welcome back." However, the world in which Jason has woken up to is not the world that he remembers. I remember I came back from the pub one evening. Remember those days? And I decided I wasn't tired yet, so I decided to pick up this book to wind down. And then I did not sleep for the foreseeable future. If you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, where Sheldon is like, "I don't need sleep, I need answers," that was me with this book. The great thing about this book is the more plot you unravel, the more questions you have and the more answers you crave. There are a couple of moments in this book where Jason has a revelation. You're kind of just sat there like, yes, okay, Jason, thank you, we got that, keep up now. But there is certainly some stuff which I was like, I did not see that coming. And the fifth and final book I have on this list is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Where do I even start with this book? In this book we follow a young man named Richard who leaves his home in California to study ancient Greek at a college in Vermont. The interesting thing about Richard is that when we first meet him, he is describing the murder of another student called Bunny, a murder for which he is partly responsible. The novel then goes back and slowly reveals the events which led up to this student's murder and how Richard was involved. As we delve deeper, we learn how Richard, encouraged by his new college friends, learns a darker side to campus and ends up in this web of lies and murders. Okay, so this one I can't remember if I read it in one sitting, but I definitely stayed up all night reading it, so it counts. Because if I did, then I probably did. In all honesty, I can't pinpoint what it was about this book that I loved so much. This book was honestly addictive. We're being shown characters who are complex and not necessarily evil, but definitely not good people. But the story gripped me and I had to know what was happening with these characters. And as the story got darker and more depraved, I was hooked. There was no way I wasn't finishing this book. The way everything unfolded just made you need to know more. Not even want to know more, it made you need to know more. And it's interesting because a story about 6 college students taking ancient Greek doesn't make for the most interesting of concepts, but throw in the elements that Donna Tartt did and shake up the story structure and wow. The thing is, I think what I love about this book is that it feels like it should be a book which I actively hate and I don't. And that honestly impresses me. So those are the 5 books that I have for you today, which I either read in one sitting or I stayed up all night reading, or both. So this wasn't something that I'd planned on when I was figuring out the books which I wanted to talk about for this video, but all of the books which I have mentioned here, I've rated 5 stars. Let me know any books that you stayed up all night reading or that you read in one sitting. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below and take you up on your recommendations. If you enjoyed this video and or the recommendations, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!